My name is Dan. Been sober since June 28th, 2017. No, I was kind of always caught up in the system, I think, early on in my drinking career. So it was not really about asking for help for me. I was always kind of being forced into help. I think it was difficult for me to accept it and to kind of take seriously, and change didn't really happen for me until I took things seriously. Most of my drinking career was after my first meeting. So I was always kind of in the system, I guess. Yeah, I think I struggled with not feeling like I belonged at meetings because I was young. My first meeting was when I was 19. I also struggled with feeling like I hadn't deserved to need to stop forever. It felt like, that I should have done worse things to need to stop. But, I could see that I was an alcoholic, but I didn't think that I deserved to need to stop yet because I was so young. There's certainly a lot less chaos. When I was drinking, everything revolved around drinking. I was still in school, I was still going to work, but everything was disrupted because everything revolved around drinking. It was, I was either binging, or I was going through withdrawals, or I was trying to stay sober that week. So, it was that constant cycle of just everything kind of revolving around drinking, even though I had other things going on. Drinking just was always part of it. And so just taking that out of the equation it allows for everything that I have, because everything, when I was out there, it was just such a big part of my life. It was such a big part of everything that I did that, I've been able to fill my life with other things now. And I had to fill my life when I got sober, because, it was a big void, because it was everything when I was drinking. It's meetings. And, right now I have a sponsee, I have a sponsor. But it's also changed. There's been periods where, I started an outpatient. I've gone periods where I've been hitting more meetings than I'm hitting now. During COVID, meetings were different. I wasn't going to meetings for a period. My recovery program has changed. I expect it to continue to change. I'm constantly just trying to find what works. I start going to other meetings. It's malleable. It's something that that needs to fit my life, depending on where I am. There's times I feel like I need more meetings or another meeting. It just depends. Now that I have some time under me, I'm just trying to build a stable program that, you know, that works for me, that I can maintain. I think that, you know, for me, there was a struggle of not wanting to give up on that life. I didn't want to stay sober forever. That always scared me, especially with how young I was. And you know, I constantly thought about how much I would miss by giving up drinking. And I didn't think anything about, you know, the fact that my drinking career was mostly me alone in a room with a bottle. And the idea that I was trying to hold on to that, you know, I didn't want to give up that, you know, because maybe it would turn into like a fun drinking, or, you know, I don't know what I hoped, but I didn't want to give up that. And I think people struggle with the unknown of sobriety. They don't know what it'll look like, and they don't know what it's going to be like for them. But you know, if their addiction was anything like mine, it's terrible for a while. You know, sobriety gets easier. You figure things out. Sobriety, you know, your program changes, your sobriety changes. I'm not so sure that I would still be alive if I was still drinking. I think that my drinking was aggressive and very all-consuming, and I drank to black out. I drank to drink as much as I could. I don't know how long my body really would have taken that, and if I were still alive, there's really no telling how bad it could have gotten, because you know, I knew how bad it was when I stopped. So where I would be now, it's difficult to estimate. No, I don't think anybody really tried to shame me into recovery. I think I always kind of understood that my drinking was a problem. You know, after my first DUI, they told me I was an alcoholic, and on some level I understood that. You know, it's not when I stopped drinking, but I could see where they were getting that from. So in the times of my life that things got bad, I knew that it was alcohol. It was never a secret. You know, I knew that I needed to stop. I just didn't want to. It was difficult to stop. You know, there were times that I wanted to. There were times that I stayed sober. But I didn't put together long sobriety until I did. Yeah, I knew that it didn't have to involve, you know, the gutters, but yeah, it just, I think for me, I got kind of lucky that I understood that I was an alcoholic early, because, you know, you talked about like it being difficult coming in as a younger person, but, you know, I look at people that come in when they're older and think, man, they were through it. You know, I don't want to have spent 10, 15, 20 years out there, because I spent 5 and it was terrible, you know? So there's a lot that's hard about coming in when you're young. But, you know, there's a lot that's hard about staying out there and trying to come in when you've done it for 20 years. You know, my whole drinking was wrapped up in my recovery. So at some point, it just got easier to be in recovery than to be out there drinking. I don't miss hangovers at all, because I was a binge drinker, and so I would not get hangovers until I was going through withdrawals. So I don't really remember hangovers at all. I just remember withdrawals. And I did not miss those, whatever the lowest number you said was. My love life has gotten a lot better since I've been sober. When I was drinking, I wanted, you know, it wasn't just to keep romantic people away. I didn't want anybody to be involved in my life and to see my life. You know, I absolutely had to get sober to meet someone. And I had to do the work in recovery to get to that point, because it wasn't just about being sober. You know, I had to learn how to live before I could even start to think about trying to meet someone. My life is a lot better with my family. I think it was a challenge for us when I was kind of in and out of sobriety. You know, they wanted it for me. I wanted it for myself at times. It was just, you know, I think they thought that I would eventually get there, but it was a challenge letting them down, and you know, it was just up and down, and I couldn't, you know, I have nieces. I have a niece and nephew now, and I couldn't imagine what I would have been to them had I been drinking. You know, I've been sober for their entire lives, and you know, I don't even want to think about the type of uncle I would have been as an active alcoholic. I think that that's a difficult question, because I think there are certainly times where people need to remove themselves from somebody in active addiction. I think that we do a lot of damage when we're in our addictions, and I certainly don't blame people for wanting to get away from that. I think if someone is still, you know, trying to get somebody help or still wants to continue fighting for that person. I don't know. I really don't know what to tell them. I don't. Like I talked earlier about needing to fill an entire life because so much of my life revolved around drinking. That early in recovery, and one of the things that I really learned in IOP was that I needed to fill my life with other things. I think that when I was constantly going back between sobriety and drinking, I never tried to fill that gap when I got sober. You know, I just thought that I could just not drink and then that would be enough. But I had to fill, that time with other things. And I tried to do anything. The first place that I lived, on my own, in sobriety was, there was a knitting store at the bottom of the building. And so I just took up knitting. Like I'd never really planned on knitting, but I knew that I needed to do stuff. And so I started knitting. And it's not, I don't knit today. It wasn't like a key to my recovery that I continued, but I needed to fill my time with something. So, it was working out for a while. It's been school lately. I needed to fill that time with something productive. Because, that first year or two is shaky. There's definitely periods where the liquor store looks better than other days. And it helps to have things to do when a craving hits. Because if I have 3 days, or I should say if I had 3 days that I didn't have anything to do, then that looks like a pretty good time to just drink for 3 days. So, no matter what it is, I just needed to fill my time with hobbies or friends or just something to keep myself active, something to keep myself responsible for.
What did you take up after knitting? Or you said school, just life?
Yeah, I took up chess in the early days of the pandemic. So I had moved to Detroit. Pandemic hit. I had I was sober for maybe 2.5 years at that point. So I was okay, but it was a big move. And I was moving someplace where I didn't know anybody. And like most people in the start of the pandemic, I just took up some random hobby, and it was chess. And watching videos on it, playing it. I met Rachel and got her into it. It's the hobbies come and go, but it's just about having something to fill that time and to fill a life up, because I really didn't know how to live, because I had started drinking at 14, and then drinking was what you did, or drinking was what I did. It was my main hobby. You know, it was what I wanted to do. And so I needed to find other things to do and to want to do. I was lucky in that my friends were supportive of my sobriety, and I just didn't really need to remove anybody. I don't think there weren't people in my life that were a threat to my sobriety. I didn't hang out with old friends at the bars, you know, early on in my recovery. So those friendships changed, but I think that, you know, I really didn't need to remove anybody because they were a threat to my sobriety. I look at everybody that helped me because I don't really take credit for my sobriety. You know, after my first big mistake, I feel like I had guardrails around me the whole time. You know, I had a lot of help even as I was drinking that kept me somewhat contained. I had school, and I had the ability to go to therapy. I had the ability to get to meetings. I had POs. I had a lot of systems around me that kept me close. You know, we talk in the rooms about keeping people close. And even though I wasn't really in the rooms, I think there was a lot of people kind of keeping me close. And so now I feel like I need to give back for that, because I feel incredibly lucky that my drinking career ended early, and that I didn't have to go through what I know other people in recovery have gone through. And so, you know, I just try to make myself available to give back. And it's not just to other people in recovery. I think I owe my community something. I think I owe the state something. You know, all these people that I railed against while I was trying to drink, I realized were trying to just keep me sober and keep me from, you know, screwing up too badly. And, you know, I hope to be able to help other people in that same way. Whether it's people in recovery or, you know, people trying to go to school, or, you know, whatever people want to do. I hope to be able to remove some of those barriers for people. Thank you.